Excited to kick things off today. We're going to talk about streamlining inspections and audits. And I promise we're going to make this fun. It's going to be interactive as well. So if you all have any questions um, as we're going through this, definitely feel free to hit that, put those up in the chat. And we will do our best to get to those throughout the presentation. But a quick sort of primer here. All the questions we're covering here. If you recall when you signed up to register for the webinar, we had a box in there to submit any questions that you wanted us to cover. Our goal is to try to cover as many of those as we can in this webinar. So we want to make this a masterclass that's useful for you all. And so that'll be the basis for where we're getting these questions from. And then we'll go from there. If anybody has anything live, we'll try to get to those as well. And if we can't get to them all live on the call here, we'll make sure we make note of that and we do include those as well. So is this webinar being recorded? Yes, it is. Like I said, you'll be getting it pretty soon. I think I said a week. We're telling them folks March 14th. We're getting fast. And yeah, if you have any questions, just go ahead and put it in the chat there where you see where everybody's calling in from. And we'll go from there. So without further ado, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Nick Haas. I'm one of the founders here at MaintainX. I mainly work with a lot of our customers and have helped drive a lot of digital transformation projects and strategic initiatives across a lot of those clients that we work with. Currently leading our MaintainX community. If you don't know about our community, I'm going to give it a quick plug. Check it out. You can easily access it through your MaintainX app to easily sign in either on mobile or on desktop, just through that support button. You'll be able to see it. It's free to join, and we've got a fun little March Madness, well, bracket tournament challenge. I can't say that first word, two words together. It's a slap on the wrist for me. But we had a tournament bracket challenge that we're doing with our community, so definitely check that out. Yeah, and if you've gone to any trade shows or conferences that MaintainX has been at, you may have met me in person as well. Attend a lot of those, and yeah. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce my co-host here for this webinar. It's a real honor and privilege to pass this off to Chris Hudson.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, and I'm excited to participate in this webinar today. I think what's unique about me, other than 30 years in industry, is basically as a client of MaintainX. Not that long ago, I was sitting in a room asking Nick questions around, what are some of the key features and tools of MaintainX as you assess and do discovery on different platforms. And for me, one of the strengths was certainly the simplicity of producing standard work in the form of inspections and audits, but more importantly, how sophisticated you can be and how inspections can basically optimize performance of your assets. So I'm really looking forward to the role I have now, which is Director of Lifecycle and Manufacturing Solutions. I'm frequently at customer sites, learning about some of the tools that they find useful, and we hope to surface some of those today.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, for those of you watching that don't know, this is your first time coming across Chris Hudson here at MaintainX. He is a tremendous resource for us. He is got, his experience in the industry paired with everything he knows. If you've got hard questions in the chat, try to stump him. I haven't found anything where I've found it really hard to stump him. In my time working with him, he really brings he's a absolute treasure trove of best practices and everything from lean to manufacturing operations. And I think he's going to hopefully give you all some good insights and share some things with you all today that'll hopefully be helpful for you all. So without further ado, I'm going to kick things off and we'll go straight into our Q&A. And we will do some, I will show some product demos as well for where it's relevant. But just to kind of kick things off, we'll jump right into our Q&A. So Chris, you want to kick things
Yeah,
off?
sure. Absolutely. And we really appreciate everybody submitting these questions, and they're very relevant to, I think, everyone here on the webinar. So, Nick, you've had a lot of experience in helping customers scope and hear about challenges. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think that customers face in implementing inspections and audits?
Yeah, there's it's one of those. There's a saying that goes around digital transformation world where you can't digitize broken processes and expect them to work. And I think so many folks try to take a process that's not working on paper and just expect if we can convert that into a digital process today, we're going to be able to see results. And I think one of the challenges is how do you couple the best content, what and how to inspect it, with the most intuitive one-point lessons or visually guided inspections, with the goal being to optimize inspection workflow and minimize equipment downtime. So an example is like a CIL with an exploded view and corresponding table for the bubble numbers. When you're checking fluid numbers, having a picture of the site gauge and listing the specific fluid to use when topping it off helps ensure accuracy and avoid delays. One of the benefits of like using a digital platform too is you can be creative with how you leverage the platform to provide access to information that would otherwise maybe be a bit unwieldy to have on paper, right? You don't want to print out a lot of color images on copies when you're doing that and just burn through ink if you don't have to and have all this extra paperwork. But if you can add images into inspections, show people what good looks like or what bad looks like, it's a great way to help make sure that regardless of who's performing an inspection, you're able to make sure that that is performed consistently because you don't always have the luxury of having your experienced folks go and perform critical inspections. Sometimes you work with what you got, and so I think being really descriptive and precise is one of the challenges that I think a lot of organizations face because they don't necessarily have that you know uh, context and that information sitting around. It's sometimes something that they have to build. They don't necessarily have pictures baked into the procedures. It's not a hard, heavy lift to do that, but it's a bit of a shift in mindset. But yeah, Chris, how about you? What are some of the things that you see when
Yeah,
you're
I,
on site?
Just to piggyback, so used to be in an organization. One of the roles of this aftermarket team was to ensure that all the equipment manuals, all the digital collateral was in customers' hands. And so I used to, equipment manuals are very detailed, but by nature, they're somewhat ambiguous. In a lot of ways, they're written by engineers for engineers, even with some technical writers trying to get a little more customer perspective on the usage of the manual. But there's so many different applications and duty cycles. So I was just looking at an inspection that had 25 steps in it, lots of text, measurement instruments. Honestly, after like step 8, I'm looking for a picture story, So I'm a big fan of one-point lessons, the ability to distill a lot of words and text into something on a mobile device that can be viewed with a good standard. Nick, you talked about that, a picture that says this is what good looks like, this
Yeah,
is what bad looks like. If I'm just lubricating chain, how do I remove a cover? What does that look like? What are the tools I need? What are some of the safety criteria? So the ability, I think, for our inspection tool to be sophisticated, but also to kind of keep it simple in the way of a one-point lesson.
yeah, that's a great call out. It actually reminds me of a brief anecdote I'll share you from. I was at a client site a couple weeks ago, and there's one particular inspection that they were struggling with, and the folks on the front line, the folks that out in the field were not doing it, and the VP wasn't particularly happy about this, and he said he had gotten feedback from his team that it was really unwieldy to use and maintain X. It was just a really tough procedure. And we took a look at this procedure. There's 124 items on it, and this facility, this operation is really large acreage wide. I mean, it's a big and part of that procedure was in one location of the site. Another section of the site was basically a car ride away, and this is something they had to do daily. And so we I let them know. I was like, hey, we helped with the implementation and put that form together. I was like, we didn't hire creative writing majors to work on this. This is the exact word for word inspection that y'all been passing, having them do on paper. And and as he kind of thought about it, he's like, look, he ran a quick audit with his team um, to see how often they've been doing that. He's like, I think we've just been pencil whipping it the whole time. Actually, as we look back, most of these aren't even filled out. And so, it goes back to that. How do you simplify? How do you kind of break them down into logical steps so that it's a bit more manageable? And I think that's something that, goes back to, rethink that process from the ground up. Breaking it up is not necessarily it may look like more work, but it may make it more manageable so that you can delegate it and break it apart to different teams and areas that make sense. So, but
No,
yeah,
I think you're right. The goal is to simplify the duration of the inspection, right? And to build it in the form of a workflow that progresses how the user would want to conduct that task.
yeah. So when we think about like how can companies transition from reactive to preventive maintenance strategies, and what's the role of like inspections and you know, audits in that process too?
Yeah, from my perspective, it always starts with trying to identify the Pareto of the critical assets. So the last plant that I was responsible for, for almost 1,000 assets in the facility. And not that they're all not important, but from a production standpoint, if the coffee maker wasn't working, it may or may not impact production for the day. So I think, having the stakeholders, a cross-functional team that's involved in a Kanban exercise of identifying what are the 20%, the Pareto of the critical assets that really impact, say, 80% of the output of the plant. And so by allowing everybody to have a vote in a cross-functional team, you can identify those A classifications of assets. Then it's, really to transition from reactive to planned. It's start measuring. Okay, we've identified the critical assets. Now let's measure what is the planned maintenance completed on those. And, with the goal in a phased plan of getting to 80% or more of planned maintenance activity, certainly on your critical assets. Then you can evolve that into the remaining assets in the plant. um, this can start really as a phase plan. You can start with calendar based
Hmm.
as we develop some of the inspections and checklists from those equipment manuals that we've kind of customized to fit our workload. Then you can start to include more condition based inspections using like our meters, basically to start collecting data, and that machine data, then we can start looking at even on the roadmap of automating more to predictive and even prescriptive maintenance.
Yeah.
So, there's ways to automate and create some of those triggers that will allow you to ensure that you're doing more planned activity. Kind of a storytelling. When I was doing this as a customer, you
Hmm.
would look at how much planned maintenance downtime is occurring, say, for your upcoming week. And an area that I always looked at was one that maybe is relatable to a lot of people. A lot of manufacturers and facilities have painting operations. And so whether it's a fully automated conveyorized paint system or a more manual discrete painting, but there's always a paint booth, whether it's powder or liquid. And so there used to be biweekly, every 2 weeks, change the filters in the paint booth. And this activity took two people 4 hours and it shut down the booth.
Hmm.
And so for that particular scenario, you looked at planned maintenance and said, well, how could I really eliminate or reduce that 4 hours of downtime every 2 weeks? And for a lot of paint booths, they have magnet helix, right? Pressure gauges on the booth. So we just started monitoring, and you can do this automated, right, to create notifications, the pressure on that magnet helix. And it's going to basically tell you, just like an oil meter is on your car when it says 80% of oil life is used, you start planning for that activity. So that's a kind of a real world example
I
where
like
we
it.
were able to reduce and move more to planned maintenance activity.
I'll share a quick example of like what that might look like here for folks. Got Maintain X open here, and so this is a just basic. It's an oil filter replacement. Don't have the paint part on it, but basically a couple like best practices that Chris is referencing here. We can have things like make sure you have your required tools, something for your PM. Something that I think is a nice call out that I think this was Chris. You've been a big advocate for this. This is one of my favorite ideas here is you'll notice that this procedure ends right here at this lockout tagout step. And until I complete that lockout tagout, and I can even force them to, require them to take write a signature or take photos of those locks on the isolation points, then it unlocks these sort of next level instructions. Making them visual where you can is a great step to, going back to our first point here, right? Of making it really easy for folks to understand what's going on. Here's that manual meter reading that you were talking about, which I think I heard a cool term for this the other day that I'm going to steal and figure out how to keep incorporating it where I can. But it's human powered condition based monitoring. So using human input here, because now in some cases you can automate, you can put sensors, IoT, but there are some things today where it just doesn't make sense. Sometimes if you're measuring the tread on a tire or something like that, you're not going to get an automated meter that works particularly well for that. But now on that automatic work order creation on failed inspections, now with our pass flag fail here, if I were to fail something or flag it, I can create a note here to fix, and I can add extra details here. And as I mark this work order as complete, it's going to create. Did I miss a step or is it complete? Let's mark it as done. I'm gonna mark it as done anyways. It's going to automatically create this corrective action. There we go. And so this is one of those things that I think, as you're talking about best practices, you're saying, can we automate that work order creation on a failed inspection, regardless of what it is? Imagine if it is a 24 point inspection where you're doing, different, reviewing a line, a whole production line, or you're reviewing an area, and you want to make sure that you don't have anything that falls through the cracks afterwards. Well, now we've automatically created a corrective action that can be assigned through various automation workflows that we have in the product here to make sure that folks have the context of what went wrong and any other information there, and then a manager or supervisor can appropriately assign that to whoever needs to work on it, and then conversely go into your workload, being able to plan that. Using our workload view here, you can actually figure out who has the capacity to handle that. Is this maybe a 2-day task that we want to spread out across multiple days? Maybe just this work order here so that I can load balance this person's work a little bit better, and just have a nice little visual overview of what's coming up, what they have to work on. So love that we're good call out there.
Yeah, I was just going to say too, Nick, while you're showing that workload view,
Yeah,
so that allows you to get a little more strategic planning, and particularly like if it's a compliance type work order, then there's ways to certainly designate that work order category as a compliance or an EHS driven task. But so yeah, I think workload view for better resource planning and tracking those again goes back to the ability to monitor and assure that the most critical work in terms of compliance is completed.
that's it. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point because what if Johnson here is overloaded? If we've got a critical compliance here, that's maybe not something I want to move. Maybe that can't move, or we get shut down or risk that. This helps me kind of get a better sense of, hey, maybe this can wait till the next day, or I can pass that off to someone else, reassign it to someone who is able to do that. So that visualization, I mean, I know that's something that is when you're dealing with the volume a lot of folks are, and you're working across trying to understand the schedules and how to stay compliant. That's a huge sort of feature to be able to lean into. So
Yeah, and having priorities on that on all work orders, right? When you're
absolutely.
looking at compliance and high priority, when you're
Yeah.
having your start of shift toolbox meeting, you're looking at the resource schedule and plan for the week. certainly what you want to do is make sure that you're allocating resource and schedule for those high priority work orders.
100%. Yeah, I love that. So as we think about like kind of there's another question we had was like, what are the best practices for ensuring compliance with industry regulations?
Yeah, so you just shared our auto notification, and I think that's a key feature around audit trails for compliance. Nobody expects you to be perfect, right? And so what you do need to demonstrate is that you have a high percentage of completion on compliance inspections and audits, and that you do have auto notifications so that if there is a failed inspection point, the critical thing is that there's documentation around identification and corrective action.
Yeah.
And because those are time stamped, we can see and assign again criticality of resolution on those critical inspection failures. The other thing I think that we all can associate with is, scorecards.
Yeah.
And by creating inspections and audits that are built and weighted based on criticality, we can develop scorecards, and then we can sort of also develop a leaderboard and even gamify that, right? Whether
Ah,
it's a 5S audit or a safety audit, where we're sharing with our work teams, what our scorecards are and what the trends look like. We can assign those to KPIs where we all know we've had safety goals that say, 100% of, safe, or maybe it's 98% of all safety compliance inspections are completed on time.
yes.
And so those scorecards help us, A, measure, and then B, sort of gamify and plan to ensure that those scorecards are monitored and tracked.
I think that's a huge call out there. And I'll come in here and sort of talk like how we can, some people have asked like, how do we build reports or can we build reports for, off of these? And the nice thing is the short answer is yes, we can. Um, and let me pull that screen back up here just for a second. And so yeah, if you want to be able to just filter and just look at specific safety inspections, just dig into some of these, performance of this. Maybe I want to look at be able to pull all of the inspections for a very specific, maybe just one category of a regulatory compliance. We can add an extra category tag on that. And again, that's a tag that you put on it when you first generate it, and then it stays with it until there's any changes that are made. So an easy way to help make sure that you're getting those inspections done. You can easily pull that report, export it, and share that with anyone that needs to be able to see it. I know I've personally had many of our clients call me up and really excited out of the blue, and they'd be like, "You're never gonna guess who just showed up." And I'm like, no, tell me. Not, it's gonna be a long guessing game. And they're like, OSHA. And I was like, oh, you sound excited about it. And they're like, yeah, it was the easiest OSHA visit of my life. They came in, we pulled up our reporting, went through all of our inspection history there. And it was they were blown away. So the OSHA guy may be applying for a role at Maintain X. He was so excited. But it was pretty cool to hear folks that it's one thing to be able to say this is a great way to track it. It's another to hear that validation from our clients, our community that this is something that really does kind of make those a lot less stressful than they used to be. I know those are not visits people generally get excited about. So and one point I wanted to make back here, I saw a question in the chat. Just this is easy to address. They asked like, can we modify the name of this and change who it's assigned to, update it? When that corrective action is created, that supervisor can easily come in here and update this to whatever they need. And if I need to be able to add in any other context, if I need to add procedures here, I can go to my procedure library and make sure that I add in, anything else, very modular sort of building blocks to be able to update that procedure with whatever's needed there. So yeah, easy to reassign, easy to push forward. So that was an easy one I wanted to quickly knock off while I went back to the screen share here.
Yeah, I think we've probably all learned, in being coached on compliance inspections, or as you mentioned, an OSHA audit, that simplicity is key, right? On those kind of audits, it's just the facts, man. Don't embellish, don't inspect things that aren't directly related to the standard being audited. So I think our ability to build, I use that term pokayoke or mistake proofing inspections, where we don't want a bunch of superfluous data or pictures or findings that aren't related to the audit at hand. So
Right.
I think that's another thing in terms of the ability to build those standard templates
Mhm.
and assign them either in procedures or in a work order template form. The
Yeah.
um, the last thing I was going to say on this is our ability to perform, a gap assessment to a standard. So we can take a standard and through like our AI tool, build the minimum requirements of that specification. And then you can compare your audit results as a gap assessment. And I think that's always very helpful and certainly compliance auditors always appreciate if you're being proactive and really performing gap assessments.
Yeah, I think a lot of continuous improvement folks, especially, are really interested in doing those because that's how you can sort of measure how are we getting better, are we getting worse, where are our opportunities, and where can we get better. And but if you're not measuring that and you don't have a good standardized format and consistency there, and then being able to digitally kind of have all that data at hand to evaluate it, it's really cumbersome to do kind of run that efficiently. So. I think those are some of the winners in this kind of digitization race that aren't always top of mind for folks. Sometimes it's like, hey, it helps us, it helps the production team, have less downtime, more throughput, or helps technicians do their job easier. But there's a lot of other folks in that ecosystem that benefit through those processes for sure.
Robert had a good question in the chat, and this happens, right? Whether it's on a weekly interval, as he's asking, where equipment is unavailable or offline, or,
Mm,
even equipment that is, moved, relocated. How do you remove it from that inspection cycle?
yeah. That's a great question. We can basically come in here and we can decommission an asset basically with our asset status. And this is one thing that folks, if you aren't using asset status today, like this, this is an absolute game changer for your whole team to start to understand how to use. So you can access this from mobile. If you can change the status of your asset from online to offline to do not track, Robert, one of those things, this is going to be a great way to help make sure that and these can be customized, by the way. You can come in here to create custom asset statuses that make sense for your team. One of my clients just last week was saying he's making a new one where when it's partially fixed and running, but he jerry rigged it, so he's not confident. He's just waiting on a better part. He has an asset status now where it's online but jerry rigged, just so that people know it's not in tip top fighting shape, and he's got more to come. But it's offline. It wasn't offline. It just he don't have a lot of confidence that it's gonna you know be as effective. So when you update these asset statuses, yes, that'll help kind of mitigate those work orders until you're ready to bring it back online, and it'll also make your reporting a lot nicer because now you're going to know, as you're tracking your assets availability, it's going to make that a lot more accurate as well. So which then helps you get the benefit of drilling down into root cause. But I'll try to resist going too far into a demo here, but wanted to just kind of show where the implications of tracking that can go. And one other quick anecdote I want to share on that question of like insurance, using best practices for compliance and regulations. It's not just for like compliance with regulators. I had a client told me about 6 months ago, and unfortunately we can't like blast this from a rooftop as a cool case study because it's a little too sensitive to name the folks involved. But they have, one of their components of part of what they have an inspection for. They have to ship off to their clients. Our client ships a finished, a car, basically a container to one of their clients, and it has to be cleaned out, like fully washed down. They can't have any residues in there. And they have their guys go in and do a full, 360 photos of everything in there, take pictures of each corner, and they do that before they send every single container out. Well, they had an issue with one of those containers, their client did, and it cost them a couple $1 million worth of product that went, was spoiled. And the lawyers got involved. They got a legal notice, and it was either going to be they had to go to court, battle it out. There was going to be a settlement. They were able to pull Maintain X up, share that inspection log from that day, from that exact container. They dropped the whole incident went away overnight. That one time, think about opportunities for you to incorporate procedures and inspections like this into maybe things you deliver for quality control or other things where, how can you incorporate this to CYA where you can, right? So that's a fun little anecdote of maybe a non-regulatory specific use case, but something that might be relevant for folks out there.
Yeah, I always, as a customer, put my customer hat on. The first few months of having Maintain X and seeing the power of the inspection tool, I basically went across the organization and the tech stack and said, do we have forms? Where are we collecting data? How can we digitize it? And, whether it's the QC use case that you talk about, Nick, safety. So there are, I think I eliminated two other software packages because it was all disparate data, right? Got it all into one system, the single pane of glass of Maintain X. So I guess bringing it back, Greg even pointed on, keep inspections optimized, simple. And I always go back to like the 5S model, when you talk about lean and continuous improvement, and that is, cleaning is inspection, inspection's detection, and many times detection can lead to correction. And so maybe kind of moving on here, Nick, I know, so as we talked, you highlighted game-changing features. Can you tell us a little bit about how AI is transforming the inspection and audit process?
Yeah, we've we've got, if you haven't played with our procedure generator yet, I definitely recommend you check that out. It's really robust. If I'm walking, I've got folks that they don't have any documentation. They're just walking through a facility. It's like, hey, I want to make a procedure for something. You can just voice the text talking to this procedure generator from your mobile device. You can ramble for 10 minutes if you need to. Tell it what you're trying to accomplish, mention steps, and then it'll build that out for you in real time, which I think is pretty powerful. Now, if you do have documentation, say you have an OEM manual, maybe you've got a picture of a checklist, you don't even have the file anymore, you can import that and say, hey, digitize this, and it'll build that out for you using AI. That's one of those things that saves people a lot of time and that mental hurdle. Like even if yeah, and sometimes it's maybe not the perfect field choice. Maybe you want a checkbox instead of a, pass flag fail for something or vice versa. You can make a couple of minor tweaks, but it takes that initial, inertia and that energy from having to build that out from scratch. Another way we're using AI today in our product with those inspections is like an anomaly detection. So if you're putting, let's say you're doing that manual meter reading, if you fat finger it, it's going to flag it, even if the technician's not even aware that that's a problem. It'll create a corrective action there. Or if it is a problem, it'll also create a corrective action. So that's a great way for you to kind of help make sure that, as people are putting data in, it's flagged appropriately. Now, we did recently have a pretty exciting release with a Copilot tool. I could sit and talk to you all about that for another hour easily. I won't do that right now to stay on track here, but we do have a masterclass coming up on March 28th, covering AI-powered maintenance strategies. It will have Copilot. I think our team is going to drop a link to register for that in the chat, and you'll be getting an email about it as well if you haven't already. So definitely join if you want to hear a little bit more about that. So yeah, as we get back to like the master class for today, though, as excited as I am about that one coming up, Chris, how can organizations improve accountability and visibility in their inspections?
Yeah, really good question. I think it starts with provide, some of the type of inspection tools we've talked to today that empower the frontline teams to really get in and do not only accurate but I'll call it fun. When people have a world-class inspection tool that allows them to ensure that they're following a minimized workflow in terms of the downtime for the inspection, and they can see the results and see the data that's coming from that, I think it helps build collaboration across the organization, and I think it reduces, what I'll call checkitis, which
Yeah.
is that syndrome where you put the 25 check boxes in a procedure and people become sort of bored, right? It's like check, check, check. There's
Yeah.
no accountability to say, hey, record, oh, the temperature met spec, record the temperature. And then,
Yeah.
hey, there's an anomaly tool. If it's not in the range, we're going to flag it. Is this really the data point you wanted? And if it is, we're going to create an auto corrective action. So I think empower the teams, make it fun, use scorecards, and ensure that there's accountability built into this critical data we're asking them to collect. And that can be, again, using pictures for good and bad standards, video, and some of those attribute and variable data points. Um, I always feel like the organization of MRO, maintenance, repair, and operations is sort of like a sports team. There's a lot of ability, and I think those abilities, there should be visibility. All this data that we're inspecting should be visualized and insightful enough to create real-time corrective action. I think there's reliability, and that's what we're really driving towards here is reliability engineering standards to improve performance. It should be adaptable. The adaptability, which is where we're using some of those work order categories or inspection criteria based on your actual use case. But I think
Hmm.
I think the last and most important ability is availability.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing this, right? So that our critical and all of our assets can be available as needed for their intended use.
And the people make if they're hurt, they're not available.
Availability of resources, absolutely.
Availability of all the resources. Yeah, all the folks there.
Well, Nick, what are I guess it kind of comes down to what are some of the benefits of digital inspections over the traditional, legacy paper-based audits?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the things we've already covered today, with just having an automatic corrective action. Gee, that doesn't happen when you check something on a paper, right? But there's and the value of just increasing that time to value and that transparency is helps lead to like greater efficiency. You can have greater accuracy with timestamps. If OSHA showed up or a regulator showed up and looks through your paper, you can, do a little dance in the front office while someone's back there backdating all the procedures in the world. And you know, it's the accountability is it's hard to trust. And with our digital timestamping, that makes a big difference. Being able to incorporate, IoT and automation workflows based on equipment, depending on what your level of digital maturity is, being able to incorporate, can give you a lot of greater efficiencies to perform time-based or usage-based uh, inspections that say, hey, this has had 5,000 runtime hours. Let's go check on, ABC and make sure that it's going well rather than having to maybe perform something more frequently than you need to because that machine doesn't run every day, 24/7, or doing something maybe less frequent than you should because you don't realize that they are running it 24/7. And so there's a lot of advantages on that front. And I think the part that we also touched on is just that continuous improvement component. And this is something I love to challenge our clients to try to do, especially if you've got multiple sites or multiple shifts, is try to make a few like A/B tests. Try to see what you can learn from one shift to the other, or why does it take shift A, first shift an hour to do something that second shift takes two hours to do? Is first shift cutting corners? Maybe doing something that's not safe or not doing it all the way through, or maybe they're more efficient and they should teach shift two. Hey, you don't need to do things as elongated as you need to. Those kind of time-based insights are really hard to figure out on paper, you know. And so those are some of the things that I think, maybe the not obvious, opportunities that people have going to digital. But then just, I'm sure many people out there have seen, this is version 2.34, A, and then there's 17 new versions since then that corporate sent out or people have pushed out, but they're still photocopying, the only version that they had laying around. And so you don't really have that accountability of understanding, is everybody using the latest version that encompasses the latest standards and, whether it's safety or other, reliability insights and learnings. I think those are some of the opportunities that folks get with digitalization that make it more than just a lifestyle choice to say, hey, let's go digital to paper. There's some material benefits there to your business and your operations that I think folks don't always take into consideration.
That's
Uh,
it. I mean, Nick, you kind of touched on a point. How do teams ensure consistency in completing audits across multiple locations?
yeah, I think today that's a lot of meetings and a lot of people who, depending on where they sit in the org chart, might just say, yeah, we got it done. They don't want to take the heat. Maybe they don't even know. And so you got first your supervisor there on, the plant manager, whoever on first shift, there when first shift's there, but he's not there when third shift's doing their work. He doesn't have a clue if they're doing it or not. And maybe he does, maybe he can tell because when he gets in, it's a mess. But that accountability, even internal in one site, can be really tricky, let alone when you're talking about a multi-org, multi-site operation. But yeah, but thinking about like how does you've got a lot of experience with reliability. I mean, how do these inspections actually affect equipment reliability? What's that sort of correlation there that might not be obvious to folks?
Yeah, I think it's, providing that training and the key metrics that are driving the team forward around whether that's equipment availability, but ultimately agreeing upon those metrics and then ensuring that the inspections are generating the outcomes that you're trying to improve there. I know we're sort of running out of time, and we wanted to give sort of a rapid fire open mic. Is that something we want to pursue at this time?
Yeah, I know we've got a couple questions here. And this will be fun for you, Chris. Like how do I, someone asked, how do I incorporate OEM inspection data into Maintain X?
Great point. There, Nick talked about our AI procedure generation tool. So it gives you the ability to upload an equipment manual with all the OEM specs, recommended maintenance points, calibrations, inspections, and produce a draft that you then, can customize, configure to your use case or application. I think that's one of the first points. We also have a platform that we're working on right now called Asset Connect, which is the ability to collaborate with OEMs in our platform to help digitize their OEM. We call it PMs out of the box, and so there'll be more to share on that as well.
Awesome. Now, VJ here has a question. Can we monitor the real-time status of machines? If yes, what extra tools do we need to install? And you're the SCADA master, as far as I'm concerned, Chris.
Yeah, and again, that going back to in early days of discovery, I'd used a lot of CMMS tools in my career, and I was looking for a mobile-first platform, and MaintainX is the leader there. But yeah, it's open API and the ability to integrate. I started by just getting the team, the change management 101, getting them using this really great user interface, and then once they had confidence, we quickly integrated to IoT sensors. And so we have a whole team in engineering and implementation that can help on that, depending on if it's accelerometer, you're trying to measure vibration or temperature or pressure. So we can integrate to IoT sensors. Nick, you talked about SCADA. I actually, in my last place, we integrated to Ignition SCADA to have a bidirectional, turn the light back to green when a work order was completed.
Mhm.
So there's lots of integration use cases, and we can share a link to that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of cool tools out there that either might work with your machine's PLC that you have on it already, or if you don't, we've got, there's a lot of IoT devices that you can use to augment that, and then generate all sorts of prescriptive sort of recommendations based on whatever the conditions are. And like there's some really cool examples I've seen where PLC shoots off like an E7 error code. You get the E7 error code inspection instructions that get automatically generated into a work order, and so that's where one of those things that it's tied into inspections because it's now going to say, hey, you need to do the following steps, and now you're not digging through a manual to find that. I see a question from Kevin in the chat here. Um, Having the manuals in the application is nice, but it's having to download them is a bit inconvenient. Sean agreed. I want to encourage you all to check out Copilot and also join that masterclass on March 28th. I think you're going to be really excited by what we've done to help make that workflow a lot less cumbersome for you guys, and everyone else who might be interested in learning more about that. Um, let's see, we've got another question here. I see a few people have asked, what sensor companies we work with. We've got an open REST API, like Chris said here. We can work with almost anything on the market today. If you've got any questions about any specific vendors, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to talk through the specifics. Because the reality is, there's like not one size fits all for any business. You need to have it takes some understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, what kind of equipment you've got there. Um, let's see, how does MaintainX support um, consistency and audits across multiple locations? How do we do that? Chris, you want to talk about how we do that?
Yeah,
And we
I'll go back to developing standard work. So, for some organizations, they may have similar equipment or processes across their organizations. So, I think it's optimized by building that standard work or standard kind of gold standard, we call it, inspection. And then from there, you can ensure that people are trained in using what is considered the standard inspection tool, much like an ISO standard would be included in your organization. Those are I think the key points. And then because we have an enterprise tool where people can collaborate within their organization and then across the enterprise. So I think, getting teams sort of a cross-functional team around best practices for certain inspections. It comes down to even the gauges they're using, the instruments, are those all calibrated? Are they part of your gauge calibration program? Do you have work orders built in for that?
Yes,
So having a team that's just sharing best practices and where they need help can continue to build that standard inspection platform.
love it. Got one from Forrest here. He says, is there a way to schedule a work order to repeat every 11 days or any other odd schedule like that? I figure I can give you a quick little product showcase here. So this is just on the web. I'm just editing an existing work order. You can do this from a new one. If I want to come in here and make this recurrence of daily, maybe it just should occur on every Sunday, maybe every 2 weeks. I can create a recurrence at whatever odd number schedule you have. So if you need to do maybe quarterly, it needs to be done on a Sunday or something like that, we can set that up. We've also got all these other sort of very flexible options. So some people have ones where they need it to be done every 30 minutes, every hour, inspections. We can support that as well. If you need to be able to support monthly by date, monthly by weekday. I think if you've got any questions about a very specific use case here, or example, let us know and we can kind of help walk through how to set that up. But we've the recurrence part can be a little bit tricky if you don't play around with some of these tools. We've made it a lot smarter than it, because now it'll automatically kind of adapt to the recurrence you're looking for. But reach out to your CSM or your account manager if you've got any specific questions, and I bet we'll be able to help. I know we can help answer that for you as well. Um, see, we've got another question here on how can can we generate reports with this tool? With how does the app perform the work of a energy reports using this tool? Does the app perform the work of a BMS? Um, Not really. Like the energy reports, we can do some elements of it. We can track it through meters. And so if you have a meter, if you have like energy connected uh, to your meter readings, and you'll be able to see that inside of Maintain X. There's some functionality there that we've built out. Is it as robust as a full-blown BMS with respect to energy reporting? Probably not to that degree today. But is it, if you don't have a BMS and you're trying to do some energy reports around a few functional assets today and start getting into that direction, I'd say you can get that done. I know we have some clients that do, but
Yeah, we can, at a high level, let's say in your facility, you just want to have a sustainability audit around, energy consumption, water usage, whatever the variable is. So we can build that out. In some cases, I know again at my old place, I just put sensors on some of that on the switchgear to measure actual output, and I compared that to the monthly bill in terms of watts consumed. Yeah, much of that can be built. Again, Nick, to play your card, it's talk to your AM and CSM around your specific use case, but there's some good dashboards you can build out.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I saw a comment around like procedures versus checklists and the names. I'll show some folks a quick trick here that I know this isn't exactly what you're trying to solve here, but within this report with this like oil replacement, right? When you come in here to edit it, if y'all can see my screen here, I'm going to show you in the settings here. I can put a category on it. I can say this is a maybe in a preventive type of work. I can even assign it specific assets. When I save that here, save that template. Oh, I just created a new one. If I wanted to filter here and just come in and look and see, by category, which of these are preventive and not see my inspections, I'll see just the preventive ones. And so now when I'm trying to filter through my procedure library and set that up, you're able to kind of differentiate between maybe a checklist versus a procedure. How, the nomenclature that folks use is different kind of everywhere we go. Another customization thing, if you haven't seen this, we've had folks that say, we don't do work orders, we do tasks or we do jobs. You can come into your Maintain X instance here, and there's opportunity to basically customize all of the fields in here if I can find it here. So if I wanted to edit the labels and say work orders should be called tasks instead of work orders, because that's what people call them. I'll say task and then tasks. You can relabel quite a few things within Maintain X to fit the nomenclature of your organization there. So I know some folks in organizations get hung up on that, so wanted to quickly show that because it's a nice way to help make sure that everything adapts to the way you guys work. Let's see, are there any other can we Nick Gravel has a question on calibrated tools. Can we catalog and track calibrated tools and then select tools used for certain maintenance or inspections and tie that tool to the work order? Um,
Yeah.
you got a quick answer to that?
Yeah. Your calibrated instruments are just like any other asset. Give it an asset name, and you can schedule calibration intervals, based on that. And you can include that asset like a part or a tool on your work order or in your procedure.
Yeah. And we've got folks that'll even I've seen, they'll do calibrations as part of their inspections. You can have folks take photos, say, hey, take a photo of the caliper showing the measurement or the reading or, what have you. So I definitely, encourage you to ask your CSM if you have any questions on that, specifically that you want to dig into. And we'll be able to kind of give you a more robust answer based on what you're specifically working with. Did I freeze up here? Oh,
A little bit.
all right. Well, what I'm trying to get to here, if my computer will cooperate, it may not. Um, let's see here. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. So for the last few rapid fire questions, we have inbuilt SOPs for standard equipment like chillers and motors. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna show you one more thing. I didn't have this pulled up. Probably would have been a good idea, but we do have a global procedure library here. If you haven't seen this yet, um, I want to just quickly show this to y'all. We've got this procedure hub. So if you're looking for anything, examples of what to do for your organization, you want to find some quick starting building blocks, whether you're looking for specific equipment procedures or you're looking for maybe, are there OSHA inspections that are relevant to our business? We've got a really robust library here with thousands of procedures that have been pre-built. So if you want to be able to lean on some of those templates that have already been developed, definitely check out our procedure library here. It's getmaintainx.com/procedures, and you'll be able to find that in the nav bar as well. So check that out when you have a moment. Now, the last thing here I'll kick off is I want to quickly give everyone a quick shout out and plug to folks who are still with us as we wrap this up. If you haven't seen our MaintainX Academy, definitely check that out. It's academy.getmaintainx.com. You can find it on our homepage. Great resource to learn more about specific elements of our product. And we make a lot of really short form content. So you're not going to be watching a 2-hour long training video. If you just want to go and learn how to do a very specific function, you can watch a quick 5-minute, tutorial or 3-minute tutorial on how to do something. Again, another plug for community. If you have any questions that weren't answered here, or maybe you have something that comes up later and maybe you're interested in what your peers are doing, go check out our community. It's a great resource for folks to be able to see what folks, what their peers are up to. And then lastly, within that academy, you'll also find our event calendar of upcoming webinars. So check that out as well, and make sure that you register for anything that looks exciting. But that said, Chris, awesome hosting this with you today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you to everyone who's with us. Just to reiterate, we will send this recording out to everyone who registered by Friday. So thank you all again so much for joining, and hopefully you found this helpful. And if you have any feedback at all, let us know. Until next time, thanks so much, everyone.
Have a safe day.